The 13 strangest and most mysterious archaeological discoveries around the world. That shocked scientists. Have you ever wondered if there are discoveries that have completely changed the way we view human history? Ancient artifacts, mysterious ruins, and stories that even scientists hesitate to explain. From enigmatic pyramids to lost civilizations, from unexplainable artifacts to supernatural phenomena that defy logic, each holds enormous questions about our past. Today, we're bringing you 13 of the strangest and most mysterious archaeological discoveries, findings so baffling that even top experts have been left speechless and driven to propose countless theories. So, what exactly are these discoveries? What secrets do they hold? Let's dive in and explore them together, starting right now. A 1,000-year-old ancestral tomb. In November 2006, police in Xi'an, Shanxi Province, China, uncovered a smuggling case involving 129 cultural relics, including stone tablets from a Song Dynasty tomb. According to the smugglers' confessions, all 129 artifacts had been looted from a nearby ancient tomb by a man distantly related to the tomb's owner, who unearthed them and sold them. The Shanxi Provincial Cultural Relics Bureau, which was already familiar with cases of tomb looting and unexpected archaeological finds at construction sites, quickly located the site and promptly began emergency excavation. Archaeologists later confirmed that it was, in fact, a massive cemetery covering nearly 22 acres, located in Lantian County, Shanxi Province. This burial site belonged to 5 generations of the Lu family during the Song Dynasty, with the tombs arranged along a central axis. Along this north-south axis, the tombs of the eldest sons and their grandsons were aligned vertically, while others were placed horizontally based on familial hierarchy. The tomb system employed a unique anti-theft design known as the tomb-over-tomb layout. The burial chambers were dug deep into hard rock, with the deepest tomb reaching about 51 feet and the shallowest about 25 feet. The tombs were complex, with multiple chambers, front, rear, and parallel rooms. The upper chambers were often empty decoys, while the lowest one contained the actual coffin and significant burial items. This clever setup forced tomb robbers to dig through layer after layer without knowing which chamber was real. Ancient tomb raiders, armed only with basic shovels, would have had great difficulty reaching the main burial chamber. Even if they did, they risked being buried alive due to landslides or suffocating from lack of oxygen. A danger often misinterpreted as exposure to toxic gas, when in fact it was oxygen deprivation from being underground for too long. During the excavation, archaeologists themselves nearly fell victim to these deadly traps. However, their efforts paid off when the grand discovery helped solve a major mystery. Who was this noble family? The answer? The Lu family, descendants of Lu Dalin, 1044 to 1092. A Song Dynasty figure revered as the founding father of Chinese archaeology. Lu Dalin was the first Chinese scholar to study ancient bronze artifacts and inscriptions. He authored 2 pioneering works, Caogu Tu and Caogu Tu Wen, which laid the foundation for archaeology and paleontology in China. In these books, Lu provided meticulous sketches, classifications, and scientific descriptions of ancient objects, including discovery time, location, and dimensions. Lu dedicated much of his life to Confucian studies, but in his later years, he began collecting bronze artifacts. Ironically, however, no bronzes were found in his tomb. Archaeologists suspect they were stolen by grave robbers. Only 70 artifacts, mostly porcelain, were buried with him. Despite the loss, the remaining items were exquisitely crafted, reflecting the refined taste and cultured lifestyle of the scholar. Although the tomb complex had been looted several times by modern-day robbers, many of whom were likely descendants of the Lu family, archaeologists were still able to recover more than 600 finely crafted artifacts. These included ceramics, porcelain, bronze, gold and silver items, and lacquerware, mostly everyday household objects. They offer a rare glimpse into the living conditions of a noble family during the Song Dynasty. A large number of tea sets were also unearthed, confirming that tea was a common drink among the aristocracy of that era. One particularly fascinating find came from the tomb of Lu Dalin's granddaughter, Lu Qianrong. Inside a silver box was a reddish powder. Laboratory analysis revealed it to be a type of facial powder used by women for makeup. Remarkably, after 1,000 years, the chemical composition of the powder had not changed. A truly impressive archaeological discovery, wouldn't you agree? A massive treasure, hidden inside an ancient tomb. Can you imagine that beneath the roots of an ordinary tree in a quiet, untouched park could lie an entire world of splendor, mystery, and bone-chilling eeriness? The strange and captivating story I'm about to tell you isn't science fiction. It's 100% real. It's a groundbreaking archaeological discovery recently made at El Caño Archaeological Park in Panama, where scientists unearthed an ancient tomb that held not only a treasure trove of gold, but also deeply legendary and spiritual secrets from a once glorious civilization that had almost been forgotten. The burial chamber, dating back more than 200 years, was the final resting place of a chief from the ancient Cocle culture, a civilization that thrived around the 8th century AD. What shocked researchers wasn't just the sheer number of artifacts, but the epic and spiritual stories each glittering gold item seemed to tell. Inside the tomb, archaeologists found dozens of gold artifacts, bracelets, crocodile-shaped earrings, gold-beaded belts, and even a strange skirt made from dog teeth. Most striking of all was a set of flutes made from human bones, as if every note played would whisper tales from the dead. Each artifact bore the mystical markings and sacred symbols of the Cocle people, a tribe that believed life after death wasn't the end, but rather a beginning. The chief, believed to have been around 30 years old at the time of death, was not alone in his eternal sleep. Beneath him lay the body of a woman, and surrounding him were 31 others, who may have been sacrificed to serve him in the afterlife. These bodies were arranged as if to physically support their leader, creating a unique and haunting human pedestal. Among the buried was also a child dressed in gold-plated clothing, likely the chief's son, according to archaeologists. But the discoveries didn't end there. A jar filled with bones of poisonous pufferfish was found next to the bodies, raising the possibility that the sacrificial victims may have died from poisoning. Adding to the mystery were upside-down ceramic plates placed over the corpses, all of them decorated on the underside, as if specifically designed to cover death. No one has yet deciphered the true meaning of this practice, but it deepens the shroud of mystery surrounding the burial site. Even more fascinating were the strange creatures carved into the jewelry and burial items, half-human, half-animal figures, and mythical beings believed by experts to represent ancestors or even the spiritual embodiment of warrior souls. Some suggest they function similarly to modern-day mascots, symbols meant to empower and inspire in battle. Perhaps this is a fascinating connection between ancient culture and the modern world, one that we simply can't help but marvel at. The mummy found beneath the pyramid. Deep beneath a pyramid in Peru, an ancient mummy was discovered inside a lavish, gold-covered tomb. This underground burial site had kept its secrets hidden for 1,600 years, until archaeologists noticed unusual patterns in the soil above. A perfect rectangular patch of earth that suggested something unnatural lay below. The tomb and mummy were found at one of Peru's most sacred sites, the El Brujo Pyramid, an ancient ceremonial ground of the Moche people. The Moche civilization thrived between 100 and 800 AD, and a tomb of such significance likely belonged to a king or high-ranking warrior. But the real question was, who was buried here, and what treasures did the tomb contain? After weeks of meticulous excavation, scientists finally uncovered the mystery. It turned out to be one of the most elaborate personal tombs ever found. Alongside the burial were hundreds of exquisite treasures, golden necklaces and bracelets, nose rings, and more. But the biggest surprise came when researchers removed a gold plate about the size of a bowl from the face of the mummy. The body was not that of a king or warrior, but of a young Moche woman. Even more astonishing, her skin was covered in tattoos. Studies show that men were typically the dominant figures in Moche society. So why was a woman, barely 20 years old, honored with such a magnificent burial? Was she a queen, a high priestess, or perhaps a warrior woman who earned great respect in battle? One major mystery still puzzles researchers: the meaning behind her tattoos. Her body was covered with depictions of animals, snakes, spiders, crabs, and other bizarre crawling creatures, inked along her arms, hands, legs, and feet. She had more tattoos than any other known Moche remains. The Moche believed tattoos were used to pray for good harvests, and clearly, this woman held great spiritual importance. Even more astonishing, she was buried with 23 spears, while powerful men in Moche society were typically buried with just 1 or 2. This suggests she may have been a figure of military or ceremonial significance. But why did she die so young? Her skull shows no signs of disease or injury. Some experts suspect she died during childbirth, but no theory is confirmed. While many questions remain unanswered, this heroine's tomb is helping scientists piece together not just her life, but the world of the Moche civilization. What do you think? What could those strange tattoos mean? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to discuss it with you. The White Tomb on the Rock of Lovers. You've probably heard of ancient wonders like the pyramids of Giza or Stonehenge, mysterious monuments full of questions still unanswered. But have you ever heard of La Peña de los Enamorados or the Rock of Lovers in Spain? If you haven't, here's a fascinating fact. It's a massive rock formation rising 12,900 feet high, nestled in the sunny, windswept region of Andalusia, roughly 285 miles southwest of Madrid. From a distance, the rock eerily resembles the face of a sleeping giant, forming a scene so dreamy and surreal that it feels like a fairy tale frozen in stone. But that striking silhouette is just the beginning. Deep inside the chest of this stone giant lies a secret that's been buried for millennia, a mysterious tomb known locally as the White Tomb. Originally just a historical site for archaeology enthusiasts, the tomb was recently re-excavated by a team led by Professor Leonardo Garcia San Juan from the University of Seville, and what they uncovered stunned the world. According to the team, the tomb was more than a burial place. It was an ancient observatory, a scientific structure built to track the skies, mark agricultural seasons, and host religious rituals. The people who lived here around 3000 BC placed each stone with mind-blowing precision, aligning the architecture with solar movements and astronomical events such as the spring and fall equinoxes, summer solstice, and winter solstice. Inside the White Tomb, archaeologists discovered some of the oldest purposefully arranged megaliths, along with pottery from the same era, showing the tomb served as both a spiritual and astronomical center over a long period of time. Among the most shocking finds were 45 human teeth and 95 bone fragments, evidence of ancient burial rituals where bodies were placed on stone platforms and later moved after decomposition as part of the ceremony. Around 2500 BC, the tomb was expanded to include 2 stone niches, likely the resting places of a high-ranking man and woman. But the story doesn't end there. In later periods, archaeologists found the tomb was altered again, the entrance sealed with massive stones, and additional remains of at least 2 children and 3 women were placed inside. Over 3 different eras of use, this single tomb became a living record of prehistoric life, belief, and death, until it was finally sealed between 1950 and 1180 BC. What left researchers in awe was the architectural precision. Stone slabs were aligned to capture the sunrise on June 21st, the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. The sunlight would shine directly into a deep chamber in the tomb, forming a sacred ritual in worship of the sun god. A triangular stone, firmly embedded in the floor, pointed straight toward the sunrise, an undeniable sign of the ancient builders' advanced understanding of astronomy. The largest megalith was also placed perfectly, turning the entire structure into a gigantic stone clock, where time, light, and spirituality merged as one. Once just a tragic love story carved into rock, the Rock of Lovers has now become a symbol of ancient human intelligence, a reminder that thousands of years ago, our ancestors looked up at the sky not just to dream, but to understand themselves. What do you think if I told you our ancestors, using only stone, sunlight, and belief, built one of humanity's earliest astronomical observatories, leaving behind a mystery we're only just beginning to unravel? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The 220 pounds of gold in a dry well in China. One morning that seemed like any other, in a small village on the northern outskirts of Xi'an, China, where life passed quietly with its slow and familiar rhythms, suddenly became the focal point of the global archaeological community. While the local villagers were diligently digging a dry well in search of a new water source for the village, they had no idea that they were about to become witnesses to one of the most spectacular archaeological discoveries of the century. Deep within the earth, which seemed to be lifeless, a colossal treasure unexpectedly emerged. Over 220 pounds of pure gold, carefully buried for thousands of years. This shocking news quickly spread, causing the small village to erupt in astonishment, and it wasn't long before archaeologists from all over the world began flocking to the site. The location of the discovery was not a nameless land. It had once been home to many ancient cultures, a place where historical, cultural, and trade flows had converged in ancient China. This fact made the find not just a gold discovery, but also a window into the deep mysteries of the ancient economy that flourished over 1,800 years ago. As the excavation progressed systematically, the findings left scientists astounded. The gold had been cast into pieces, resembling cakes, a design that was far from accidental. Each gold cake weighed between 0.5 and 0.56 pounds, and the remarkable uniformity of these pieces showed that the casting technology of the late Han period had reached an advanced level, reflecting the precision and care in financial management at the time. These were not just assets, they were currency, a vivid testament to the robust trade system of the Han Dynasty, one of the most powerful and influential dynasties in Chinese history. According to experts, gold in the Han era was not only hoarded as treasure, but was also widely used in daily transactions, much like paper money or credit cards today. The casting of gold into smaller pieces made transportation and exchange more flexible and convenient. This further reinforces the reality that the Han economy was not solely reliant on agriculture, as many had assumed, but was closely tied to trade, the exchange of goods, and large-scale financial management. But what makes this story even more intriguing is why such a large amount of gold was buried in a dry well in the middle of a village. Archaeologists suspect that during the late period of the Han Dynasty, when the society was in turmoil and the government was overthrown, particularly during the collapse of the Han Dynasty and the rise of the Wang Mang regime, many people feared that their property would be confiscated or looted, so they chose to bury their gold to protect their wealth. Over the centuries, these gold cakes were buried under layers of time, hidden beneath a layer of dust and forgotten stories until today. Currently, the archaeological team is still tirelessly searching for traces of the exact origin of the treasure and the identities of its original owners. While there are still many unanswered questions, this discovery has illuminated an important chapter in the history of ancient Chinese trade and economics. At the same time, it serves as a reminder that sometimes great mysteries lie right beneath our feet. With just a little bit of luck, a random shovel strike, history can be rewritten. The oldest rune stone in the world. In the heart of the cold lands of northern Europe, where snow blankets the hills and history lies dormant beneath the ancient earth, a shocking discovery has awakened the thousand-year-old memories of the Vikings. On January 17th, Norwegian archaeologists announced a groundbreaking discovery in the study of European writing history, the oldest known rune stone in the world, dating back nearly 2,000 years. This discovery not only sent shockwaves through the archaeological community, but also sparked a wave of questions about the origins of language, civilization, and the unsolved mysteries of the ancient Norse people. This stone, measuring about 12 inches, is made of brown sandstone and has a crude square shape. It was unearthed in late 2024 at the Tyrifjorden area, a peaceful region to the northwest of Oslo, the capital of Norway. However, what makes this stone particularly special is not its size, but the runic inscription etched on its surface, a seemingly simple phrase that holds an entire chapter of forgotten history. The inscription, when transliterated into the Latin alphabet, reads Idibarug. To this day, researchers have not been able to determine its exact meaning. It is speculated that it could be a name of a person buried in the grave, a prayer, or perhaps even an ancient code yet to be deciphered. Through carbon analysis of bones and wood found within the tomb, scientists have determined that the stone dates from around the years 1 to 250 AD. This makes it the oldest known evidence of the rune writing system, predating earlier records which suggested runic characters first appeared around the 3rd or 4th century AD. With this discovery, history has once again been rewritten, forcing us to reconsider our previous understanding of the origins and development of writing systems in Europe. Crystal Zilmer, a leading expert on runes at the Oslo Museum of Cultural History, described the stone as a unique find. It is not just an archaeological artifact, but a whisper from the ancient Scandinavian ancestors to future generations, a crucial piece of the Viking civilization's puzzle, which has always been shrouded in the mists of legend and myth. Runes were the oldest writing system used by the Vikings and the Germanic peoples throughout Scandinavia. Instead of being written on paper or parchment like many other cultures, runes were often carved into stone. Large, primitive-shaped stones erected at burial sites as a form of memorial and sacred communication with the afterlife. However, very few rune stones can compare in age and preservation to this discovery. The existence of the inscription on the Tyrifjorden stone has shattered long-held assumptions and opened new pathways in the study of ancient Northern European history. If runes were in use as early as the beginning of the Common Era, it means the Norse people developed their written language system much earlier than previously thought, early enough to be compared with other advanced civilizations of the same period. And perhaps there are many more stones still resting somewhere in the cold earth, waiting for a day when they will be unearthed to further illuminate the dark corners of the past. The 2,000-year-old grave of a female warrior from the Iron Age. Off the southwestern coast of England, amidst the mist and gentle waves surrounding the Scilly Isles, lies a small island called Bryher, a place long forgotten by the currents of history for thousands of years. However, in 1999, when archaeologists began excavating an ancient burial site on this island, they had no idea they were about to uncover a mystery that would completely change our view of women's roles in ancient warfare. Deep within the earth, they discovered an unusual tomb, the resting place of an Iron Age warrior, and no one expected that the person in this tomb would be a female warrior. The story began when the team unearthed heavily decayed remains with only a dark outline etched in the soil, the last traces of a person who lived over 2,000 years ago. Next to the skeletal remains were a bronze alloy sword and a shield, typical symbols of male warriors from that era. But what puzzled researchers were other items in the tomb: a hairpin and a bronze mirror, artifacts associated with women in burial rituals of the Iron Age. Was this a male warrior's tomb containing female items? Or was it truly the burial place of a female warrior, something rarely recorded in European archaeological records? The answer slowly became clear when the research team applied modern tooth enamel analysis techniques at the University of California. Using methods to identify proteins linked to X and Y chromosomes, which are much more durable than DNA, scientists determined a 96% likelihood that the person in the grave was female. This discovery was groundbreaking, not only because it challenged long-standing perceptions of women's roles in ancient societies, but also because it showed that, as early as the Iron Age, women could hold combat roles and even leadership positions in fierce battles. The tomb dates back to around 100 to 50 BCE, a period of upheaval for the Celts in Britain, just before the Roman Empire arrived. From the excavated items, archaeologists speculated that this woman may have been a military leader, someone who commanded raids into enemy territories, or even a symbol of power in her local community. Biologist Sarah Stark from Historic England stated, "We may never fully understand the symbolism of the burial items, but the combination of the mirror and the sword is the clearest declaration of this woman's status, not only as a warrior, but as a leader." Even more interesting, this is the only grave ever discovered in Western Europe containing both a mirror and a shield, two seemingly opposing symbols that coexisted in a sacred space, as a statement that gender did not determine one's role in battle. It was the spirit and ability that mattered. Today, these valuable artifacts are displayed at the Scilly Isles Museum on St. Mary's Island, as part of an ongoing historical narrative being rewritten daily. This discovery not only sheds light on the history of the Celts, the mysterious warriors who once ruled much of Europe before the Roman era, but also opens the door to reconsidering the role of women in ancient civilizations. While most ancient histories celebrated male generals, the tomb on Bryher tells a different story, that there were women who bravely took up arms, defended their territories, and inspired future generations. Much like the warrior queen Boudica, who led the Iceni tribe against the mighty Roman Empire in 60 CE. The question now is no longer, were there female warriors in the Iron Age? But rather, how many of them are still buried in history, unacknowledged? The 29-week-old fetal remains. On a gloomy April morning in 2009, as the ground shook violently from a 6.3 magnitude earthquake in L'Aquila, Italy, All eyes turned to the collapsed buildings, the desperate cries for help, and the overwhelming grief of over 300 lives lost in an instant. But amidst this devastation, no one expected that beneath the floor of an ancient church that had just collapsed in the quake lay a secret that had been buried for over 180 years: the remains of a fetus just 29 weeks old. When the archaeological team began excavating the site, they didn't just find the remains of adults, but also discovered a particularly small set of remains. It was the skeleton of an unborn child who never had the chance to take its first breath, lying silently in the darkness of the church's crypt. According to experts from the University of Chieti, these remains belonged to a fetus from around 1840, a time when modern medicine was still a distant dream, and social taboos surrounding reproduction were still deeply oppressive. Using modern X-ray technology, researchers discovered something unusual. The bones of the fetus were not connected as they should have been. The skull was fragmented in multiple places, the spine was broken, and the arms were completely detached from the body. This was not the result of natural decomposition, but clear evidence of a brutal and controversial procedure known as embryotomy. This procedure, common during the Middle Ages and carried out sporadically until the 19th century, was a form of primitive abortion. Tools like sticks or metal rods were used to remove the fetus, whether alive or dead, from the mother's body. Embryotomy was sometimes performed for medical reasons, but it could also stem from societal stigma or harsh circumstances that the woman of the time had to endure. We will never know exactly what happened to the mother of this fetus. Was she a victim of societal pressures, or was she subject to strict religious regulations? That question may never have an answer. What makes this discovery particularly significant, however, is not only its archaeological value, but also the way the local community in Italy once chose to treat a life that never had the opportunity to be born. Experts carefully gathered and reassembled each part of the remains in their original position as a final act of respect for the child. In a world where death is often forgotten, this reverence serves as a testament to human compassion. Even if delayed, it still exists in the hearts of people. An earthquake shook the earth, but it also inadvertently uncovered long-forgotten mysteries. The remains of a 29-week-old fetus now stand as a reminder of a painful past, of life and death choices, and of the compassion people can show one another, even at the extremes of life and death. The 130-year-old sensitive underwear of an Inuit woman. Amid the icy expanse of Greenland, where life struggles daily to survive in the harsh temperatures, archaeologists have recently uncovered an astonishing artifact: a pair of women's thong underwear, crafted entirely from sealskin and fur. This is not the modern lingerie we are accustomed to, but a vivid testament to the skill, creativity, and fashion sense of the Inuit people, the indigenous community living in the Arctic during the 19th century. This unique garment, dating back approximately 130 years, once belonged to an Inuit woman living in the cold lands of Greenland. What makes it particularly remarkable is not just the materials used or its bold design, but how the woman of that time used it as a symbol of personal identity and status within her community. Far more than a mere protective garment, these underwear were intricately decorated with glass beads, soft fur strips on the front and sides, resembling a true fashion accessory. According to Peter Toft, an expert in fur garments at the National Museum of Denmark, Inuit women wore these thong-style undergarments when receiving visitors or visiting family. In daily life, they wore them with confidence and pride, viewing them as part of their personal identity. The meticulous stitching and detailed embellishments show the woman's craftsmanship and refined taste. It can be imagined that in the freezing cold of the far north, within the warm sealskin tents, these small undergarments were considered a highlight of grace and femininity. Of course, when stepping into the harsh outdoors, where the biting cold winds could freeze the skin, Inuit women would wear multiple layers of heavier clothing to keep warm. They used caribou fur and other animal hides to make protective garments. But beneath it all, the sealskin underwear remained an essential layer. Not only did it keep them warm, but it also had windproof qualities, prevented water from seeping through, and most importantly, helped prevent sweat from freezing. One of the major dangers in Arctic weather, seals, which live along the eastern coast of Greenland, have long been a vital resource for the Inuit. They hunted seals not only for meat, but also used their precious skins to create various items: clothing, footwear, kayaks, and ropes. Once the hunt was completed, Inuit women took on the task of cleaning the hides, removing excess fat and meat, and then processing and sewing them together using handmade needles. This process required meticulous care and patience, a skill passed down through generations in Inuit culture. Now, these sealskin thong undergarments no longer lie hidden in the ice. They have been carefully restored and are on display at the National Museum of Denmark, where thousands of visitors can admire and gain a sense of the unique beauty of ancient Inuit culture. A small item, but one that tells a story of adaptation, creativity, and the pride of women in the far north. If you wish to witness the craftsmanship of the Inuit, a trip to the museum in Denmark would be quite ideal. The Egyptian woman's skeleton, adorned with gold. Egypt, the mysterious land along the Nile River, once the cradle of one of the most magnificent civilizations in the ancient world. The towering pyramids, the colossal Sphinx statues, and countless grand temples continue to captivate archaeologists and explorers alike. Recently, in Luxor, southern Egypt, specifically in a tomb area beneath the temple of Pharaoh Thutmose III, the powerful king who ruled Egypt from 1490 to 1436 BCE, Spanish archaeologists, while conducting excavations, accidentally discovered a large stone that had collapsed and blocked the passage. As they cleared the layers of earth and debris that had covered the site for millennia, they uncovered the skeleton of a woman, still adorned with jewelry, as if time had not touched it at all. The woman, believed to be around 30 years old, had peacefully rested in darkness for thousands of years. Around her neck was a finely crafted necklace adorned with a sparkling gold pendant, a clear symbol of high social status. On both her wrists were gold bracelets connected by delicate chains, each crafted with meticulous detail. Around her ankles was a graceful silver anklet, though slightly worn with age, it still exuded elegance and nobility. According to archaeologist Miriam Secco, director of the Thutmose III Temple project, the large stone that fell onto the tomb was an accidental tragedy. It is believed that this woman was in the midst of preparing for the mummification ritual, a sacred ceremony to guide the soul to the afterlife, when the unforeseen disaster struck, halting everything in an eternal moment. Ironically, this collapse may have created a natural protective layer, preserving the skeleton and jewelry in nearly pristine condition until today. The excavation didn't stop there. It also revealed many other mysterious tombs. Archaeologists continued to find several unfamiliar ancient graves, many of which had been destroyed since ancient times. They are still working tirelessly to clean, restore, and analyze the artifacts, hoping to unveil the history of the luxurious and royal lives of ancient Egyptian nobility, those who lived, loved, and passed away in an age of grandeur, power, and mystique. Ancient Hell Prison Torture Complex. Archaeologists from the Department of Science and History at Uludağ University, Turkey, recently uncovered a crypt complex featuring torture chambers and tunnels guiding prisoners to the afterlife, part of the ancient Bithynian kingdom, existing from 297 to 274 BCE. Surveys indicate this cave system, dating back approximately 2,300 years, is a surviving ancient site in Bursa, Turkey. Inside, the complex contains numerous torture chambers, deadly pits, and traces of blood. These torture rooms and dungeons, buried beneath the foundations of homes in the area, are interconnected. Lead researcher Ibrahim Yilmaz from Uludağ University stated, "A tunnel stretching about 2.1 miles, winding through the city and urban areas of Bursa, holds many mysteries." Examining the blood traces and cross-referencing historical records, experts found that ancient people employed harsh torture methods. Prisoners were hanged for periods, tortured until they became mute or deaf, and in some cases, beheaded mercilessly with their heads thrown into wells. Meanwhile, the remaining body parts were returned to the prisoners' families. However, Yilmaz noted that families could pay a certain price to retrieve an intact body. Archaeologists are still studying these unique torture chambers. Plans are underway to transform the site into an open-air museum, shedding light on a dark corner of ancient life. This discovery highlights the extreme hardships people endured for survival in the past. If it were you, would you want to live in such an era? Massive ancient Egyptian sarcophagus. In the Valley of the Pharaohs, the sacred resting place of ancient Egypt's most powerful kings, archaeologists uncovered a colossal granite sarcophagus believed to be the final resting place of Pharaoh Merneptah, who ruled over 3,200 years ago. What stunned researchers wasn't just the identity of its occupant, but the sarcophagus's immense size and the thrilling story behind its placement in the tomb. Measuring over 13 feet long, 7.5 feet wide, and 8.2 feet tall, it is the largest stone sarcophagus ever discovered for a pharaoh. Transporting such a massive stone block through the narrow corridors of an ancient tomb was a timeless feat. Dr. Edwin Brock, an archaeologist from the Royal Ontario Museum in Canada and leader of the study, couldn't hide his amazement, stating, "We've never seen a stone sarcophagus of this size and craftsmanship. It's a stunning testament to the engineering and spiritual beliefs of ancient Egyptians." Researchers believe the sarcophagus's pieces were fully assembled before being moved into the tomb using a pulley system of ropes and wooden beams. However, a bizarre issue arose during construction. The sarcophagus didn't fit through the tomb's entrance. This was likely a grave error for such a sacred project, almost unimaginable at the time. Instead of giving up or rebuilding, the builders demolished and widened the entrance to accommodate the sarcophagus, then reconstructed it to conceal their workaround, one of history's most audacious fixes. Over time, the sarcophagus broke into fragments, possibly due to tomb raiders or the weight of millennia buried underground, with only the lid remaining nearly intact. Archaeologists are now painstakingly piecing together its fragments, as if reassembling a forgotten epic. This discovery and restoration are not just an archaeological triumph, but a reminder that history, though buried in time's sands, awaits retelling. The sarcophagus is more than a pharaoh's resting place. It symbolizes the strength, grandeur, and human flaws of a civilization that once stood at the world's pinnacle. The mummified ibex found in the Alps. You've likely heard of ancient Egyptian mummies or archaeological sites that are thousands of years old, but there's another story I'd like to share with you. This is the story of a mummified ibex, discovered in Val Arena, part of the Alps in South Tyrol, Italy. A group of mountaineers accidentally came across the body of an ibex, lying motionless beneath a thick layer of ice and snow, perfectly preserved for around 400 years. The first person to recognize the significance of this find was Hermann Oberlechner, an expert involved in the survey team. He immediately contacted local authorities, which set off a chain of quick and precise actions to protect the precious specimen from the risk of damage due to external environmental conditions. When discovered, only half of the animal's body was visible above the snow. Its dry skin, devoid of fur, gave it an eerie appearance, prompting Oberlechner to remark that he had never seen anything like it in his career. However, the journey of this mummified ibex didn't stop there. The location where it was found was in a remote area that could only be reached by a combination of mountain climbing and hours of hiking, making the task of transporting the specimen a significant challenge. Thanks to the assistance of a helicopter from Italy's specialized forces, the ibex was eventually transported safely to the Urac Research Center, where it is now housed in a specialized cold room for further study. What truly excites scientists is not just the animal itself, but the potential it holds. Marco Samadelli, a conservation expert, stated, "We now understand the optimal physical and chemical conditions for preserving mummies, and this is the perfect opportunity to test them in practice." Over the centuries, the harsh cold has altered the animal's DNA in ways that modern science is still trying to fully understand. This gives researchers the chance to conduct in-depth analyses to better understand how natural conditions affect biological material over time. Albert Zink, head of the Mummy Research Department at Urac Research, also commented, "Our goal is to establish a process for the global conservation of ice mummies, something that has never been done before with animals. This is the first time in history that an animal mummy has been studied as a living model to develop new conservation techniques, from DNA extraction to establishing long-term storage systems." Unlike the artificial mummies of ancient Egypt, ice mummies like this ibex are natural mummies, preserved by weather and environmental conditions rather than human intervention. This gives them special value, not only in archaeology, but also opening new research avenues in biology, medicine, and the conservation of ancient relics. Currently, the mummified ibex is being thoroughly examined at the Urac Conservation Laboratory, which specializes in ice mummy preservation. The ultimate goal is to maintain the integrity of the DNA, which could help decode ancient secrets and contribute to future discoveries. And that's 13 of the strangest and most mysterious archaeological discoveries ever found around the world. Artifacts that have not only shocked the scientific community, but also made us question the history of humankind. Even though modern science has made remarkable progress, there are still countless things we cannot explain. Did ancient civilizations know more than we thought? Or are there still pieces of history buried beneath the earth, waiting to be revealed? If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next mysterious content. What discovery surprised you the most? Leave a comment below. We're eager to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video, where mysteries are still waiting to be uncovered.